Welcome back to Metal Ben's Chronicles, where metal lives. That is right. And we got a retrospective slash ranking we're going to do right now. And, before we get into the main ranking of this video, we're going to talk about a little bit of back history involving the legendary Peter Steele and Typo Negative. That is right. You know what? This was supposed to be done around Halloween. I just didn't have a lot of time to do it. But now we're going to get it done, and here we go. Well, you got to go back to the roots when it comes to Peter Steele, all the way back to 1979, when he formed a band called Fallout, which Fallout was more of a new wave of traditional heavy metal sounding band mixed with a bit of new wave, which new wave was coming out at that time. And future Typo Negative keyboardist Josh Silvers would be a part of this. So I'd say around 1983, if memory serves me correct, they would put out a 7-inch called Rock Hard, Batteries Not Included. That's right. The only thing that this band would release that we know of, I tried to see if there was anything else out there. I couldn't find nothing. Anyways, well, here's a little sample of Batteries Not Included.
Crack, she went. Ran down quick, I dropped to weak knees, but she's dead. Said, oh no, God, please don't die. Said, wake up as I started to cry. It was too late, he had taken enough.
So shortly after the breakup of Fallout, Peter Steele would form Carnivore in 1983. That's right, with Keith Alexander on guitars, who also unfortunately passed away in 2005, and Louis Betox on drums. That's right, that would be your Carnivore lineup going into the first album. They had another guitar player before that, but he wasn't in the band real long. Anyways, so obviously in 1985, they would unleash this excellent debut album on Roadrunner Records. That's right, the debut Carnivore album, which came out in 1985. And man, you talk about a hardcore crossover thrash metal masterpiece. I can even hear some traditional metal in here too still, from the Fallout days a little bit, like Predator, you can kind of hear it, the opening track, the track Carnivore. Gee, I wonder what that track's about, Obviously, Peter Steele's love of eating pussy. That's right, being a carnivore for pussy, man. Hey man, any true man's a carnivore for pussy. But anyways, I digress. Then you have other over-the-top offensive songs like Male Supremacy. Interesting though, on that track, you hear shades of Typo Negative. In the midsection, when it slows down, and you get that vampiric, somber, dark, deep voice of Peter Steele in the midsection. So yeah, that's your hint of what's to come in the future, come Typo Negative time. Other great tracks on here like Legion of Doom, Armageddon, God is Dead, Thermonuclear Warrior, World War III and IV to end it off. Man, what a great album this is. They had some demos out too prior to this. And man, track this bitch down and get it. So then come 1987, the follow-up album would be Unleashed Unto the World. I'm talking about Retaliation. That's right. An even angrier and faster album, than the debut, even though the debut's quite angry in its own right and quite fast. This one to me seems faster and definitely more offensive. I mean, you got the tongue-in-cheek humor of Jack Daniels and pizza to begin things. Then you got tracks like Angry Neurotic Catholics, which is just a freaking crazy song in its own right. Then you got the infamous SMD. Gee, what does that stand for, I wonder? The appropriate Suck My Dick. What a killer song this is. It even inspired me a long time ago of an old band that I was a part of to write a little short 40-second long song called Suck My Dick, which I still have demoed somewhere put away in my closet. Anyways, you got Ground Zero, Brooklyn, which is kind of like really futuristic when you listen to that track. It's like in that track, they're almost predicting 9/11, kind of freaky when you listen to it. Then you got Race War, which by today's standards would definitely piss a lot of people off. See, back then, bands weren't afraid to be offensive. The people back then weren't easily offended like today here in 2023. So you could get away with writing albums like this. You got Inner Conflict, Jesus Hitler's another one, where you can kind of hear the doomy rips that would lead into Typo Negative a little bit, another killer track. I mean, you got Technophobia, excuse me, there, another track. Wow. Right now we're living in technophobia with the way technology is and how people live in their cell phones, and that's pretty much Peter Steele again predicting what's coming in the future when it comes to this thing called technology, predicting it way back in 1987 as we speak. You got a cover of Jimi Hendrix's Manic Depression, which is a pretty cool cover. They kind of heavy it up. And you got USA for USA. That's right. I'm still damn proud to be an American. If you're not proud to be an American, maybe you should get the hell out, And that's pretty much what this song's about. Another killer track. 5 Billion Dead, self-explanatory. Another really aggressive track, And you got Sex and Violence, man. Another brutal track. Fast, just straight up hardcore, New York hardcore style. Yes, unfortunately, this would be the final Carnivore album. Carnivore would break up, and Peter Steele would go on to become a police officer, and we're going to get into the beginnings of Typo Negative now. And I realized I kind of made a little mistake there. Peter Steele would actually try to become a police officer. He would not become a police officer because due to the fact he did not want to arrest his friends. So eventually Sal Abracado, one of Peter Steele's childhood friends, would contact Peter Steele about wanting to form another band. And Peter Steele had this big contract still with Roadrunner Records after he signed a deal when Carnivore was still active. So somehow Carnivore and Typo Negative would mesh under the same contract, but at first they weren't quite called Typo Negative. They were called Repulsion. Of course, they had to change their name because of the grindcore band Repulsion, So then they all decided to get this Sub-Zero symbol tattooed on their arms, and they were going to go by the name Sub-Zero. Well, another band had the rights to the name Sub-Zero. So then, the name Typo Negative was suggested after Peter Steele saw a commercial or was listening to the radio and a commercial advertisement came on. And that's where he said, you know what? Yeah, we're going to call ourselves Typo Negative now. And that's basically the roots and the beginnings of Typo Negative. In 1989, they would record their debut album. Well, actually, it was a demo, but Roadrunner would release it as a debut album in 1991. But this was recorded back in 1989. I believe they were still called Sub-Zero, maybe Repulsion when they recorded the demo. We're obviously talking about slow, deep, and hard. Slow, Deep, and Hard. Well, what can be said about this excellent debut album besides the opening track, obviously? Unsuccessfully coping with the natural beauty of infidelity. This album is a number two. I know a lot of people put this album in the middle, some even put it in their last place. I love this debut album. Now, some people would call this a mature Carnivore album or a immature Typo Negative album. Rumor even has it this was supposed to be the third Carnivore album. You know, who knows? I mean, that could be a possibility. You still hear those Carnivore influences. However, you hear a lot of slower, darker, doomier moments in here too. You still get that angry, hardcore Peter Steele shout vocals on this record. You still get some fast stuff. It's a great debut. Yeah, you have some interludes that are probably pointless on here. Don't get me wrong, but all in all, it's a damn good one. Zero Tolerance is another highlight on here for me. Prelude to Agony, just some excellent stuff. Glass Waltz of Limbo, Dance Mix. I mean, yeah, I guess that track's probably pointless, but because it's just a bunch of like Gorgangian ambient chanting, however the fuck you pronounce it. It's just a bunch of that. All in all, though, this debut album's great. I mean, it's my number two, man. I enjoy this album a lot. Okay, moving on to Origins of the Feces. The Origins of the Feces is next. That's right. Album number two. Now, a lot of people might not consider this a studio album. However, the band did consider it a studio album. The Fake Live album, whatever you want to call it. And this was actually the last Typo Negative album I ever heard. For some reason, I was late listening to this one, Anyway, because you know what? You paid $15 to come in here to say we suck. Love it, man. This is comedy gold, in my opinion. Even though this one comes in at number 5 for me, just due to the fact, it's short. It is basically a rehash of the first album to an extent, but the fake audience and the added comedy is definitely makes up for this album. And to me, there's not a bad Typo Negative album. So whatever comes at the bare bottom is still not a bad album. But this one, it's comedy gold. I mean, because I know you're fucking someone else. Anyways, classic stuff. And you got Gravity, Are You Afraid, Pain, I'll Kill You Tonight, just killer stuff. Hey Pete, basically another Jimi Hendrix cover. Well, Jimi Hendrix didn't even originally do that song, but either or. Hey Pete, basically a rehash of Hey Joe, really good stuff. Kill You Tonight reprise. I mean, that's pretty much all the album is. There's not much to the album. It's still a fun listen, though. But it comes in at number 6. I think I said number 5. It's actually my number 6. Anyways, moving on to their biggest album, their most commercially successful album, Bloody Kiss.
Jesus Christ looks like me. Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ looks like me. Jesus Christ.
All right, you know what? We had the penetration of Slow, Deep, and Hard. We had Peter Steele showing his asshole on Origin of the Feces. Now we got some freaking gothic lesbian love with Bloody Kisses, which came out in 1993, the following year. Black Number One being the first Typo Negative song I ever heard in 1994. When I first heard it, I got to be honest, I did not like it. It took me a long time to get into Typo Negative. I didn't get into Typo Negative till World Coming Down actually came out. Figured I'd talk about it here because this is where I did come into Typo Negative. I remember seeing this at Walmart, a different version. There's two different versions of this. There's like versions that don't have Kill All the White People on it and We Hate Everyone. For some reason, they took those off because I think it was Peter Steele's idea to take those off because they still had like shades of Carnivore in it. But all in all, the album definitely grew on me over time. It's a great album, but I'm going to be controversial here. I don't listen to this album nearly as much as the other Typo Negative albums. Yes, and I know where a lot of people would put this at number one or number two. This is my number 5. That's right, my number 5. I just don't play it as much. I enjoy it. Don't get me wrong. Summer Breeze is a great cover. Christian Woman, obviously, really cool. Black Number One, obviously. The hardcore songs, Kill All the White People. We Hate Everyone. Killer stuff. The title track's good. Bloody Kisses. The cover of Summer Breeze, if I didn't mention that one already. So there's definitely good stuff on here, but there's stuff on here I kind of forget sometimes. Sorry, man. It's my number 5. I know a lot of people aren't going to agree, but hey, it is what it is. Moving on to October Rust.
Tables been set for World 7. Just last year I died with the 11. God damn you, Mary
So shortly after Bloody Kisses came out, Sal Belimo, the original drummer, would leave Typo Negative to join Life of Agony. Well, Peter Steele did disband Typo Negative for a little bit. Peter Steele at the time had this job working at a state park, and he really enjoyed that job, But eventually he came back to music, and their drum tech, Johnny Kelly, would become the new drummer of Typo Negative. So, in 1996, they would put out October Rust, probably their most commercial album, by far their most commercial album. I mean, gone are all the Carnivore hardcore influences. This one is definitely more romantic sounding in nature, definitely more gothic, compared to the past releases. Obviously, the gothic influence was there, don't get me wrong, but this one went all the way with it. At the time, Peter Steele wanted to attract more women at his concerts. Rightfully so. Hey, man, it doesn't hurt to have women at your concerts. At least I don't think. But anyways, gives you more motivation, But no, all in all, I remember when I first heard this, I did not like this album. But this is one that really, really grew on me. And now it's one of my all-time favorites. I mean, you got excellent tracks on here like Love You to Death, Be My Druid, obviously Green Man, about the big man himself, Peter Steele, Other excellent tracks on here like Red Water, Christmas Morning, probably my favorite melodic Typo Negative tune. I just love that tune. You got other tunes on here like Whoops Moon, about eating a vampiric chick out when she's on her period. How romantic. You got the last track on here too, Haunted. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff on here. The Neil Young cover Cinnamon Girl was a pretty big hit. However, this album was not as successful as Bloody Kisses, ironically. You'd think it would be, but it wasn't. So yeah, it didn't take Typo Negative to the big times. It still sold good though. I mean, it got gold status. And I remember hearing Love You to Death played on FM radio back in 1996 when it came out. All in all, this album, shockingly, is my number 3. I absolutely adore this album. Yes, you'd think me being a huge thrash head, this would be at like number 7, bare bottom. No, my number 3. I think this is well written and well executed. Anyways, now we're going to go to the dark times of Peter Steele's life with World Coming Down. So now we've reached World Coming Down, which came out 3 years later in 1999. And Peter Steele was going through a really, really dark time in his life. He really hit rock bottom at this time. You know, his drinking, his use of cocaine had increased. You know, a lot of his friends and family members were passing away around this time period. And it just put Peter Steele in a very dark headspace. And this was the album that got me into Typo Negative. I love this album. I think it's a masterpiece. You know, you got excellent tracks on here, man. Obviously, Skip, it's kind of a joker track, and there's not like really any joking tracks on this album, you know, like tongue-in-cheek type of tracks on here, like on the past albums, which I kind of forgot to mention a little bit. Like on the last album, you had Bad Ground, which was kind of hilarious, but yeah. White Slavery, though. What a dark way to begin this album. This is a dark album, man. I mean, you got Everyone I Love Is Dead, which was a single. I remember hearing that when it came out. You know, Who Will Save the Sane, you know, World Coming Down. Oh, my God. You talk about a dark, powerful, sinister track. I mean, you could just feel the depression in this track, you know, like everything's just coming down around you. That's the feeling you get when you listen to it. You can really feel the pain of Peter Steele in this track, you know. So yeah, you got other excellent tracks on here too, like Creepy Green Light, another excellent track, one of the best on here. Everything Dies, another very depressing track, another melancholic, very melodic track, you know, just really good stuff. Just looking at the track listing here quick. Peretta Blaze, another killer track. I hope I'm pronouncing that off. You know, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right. All Hallows Eve's a great track. And then you got that Beatles medley. I Want You, She's So Heavy. What a great cover. Excellent cover, man. All in all, this album, World Coming Down, is my number 1. It's a perfect album. To me, it's Typo Negative's masterpiece, you know. And now we're going to talk about an album that came out in 2003. Life is Killing Me. 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 The one that made way 3 hours, and I realized I was so well off. I'd rather see the multi-star. So in 2003, Typo Negative would put out their 6th studio album, Life is Killing Me. Last album on Roadrunner Records. You know, I did not listen to this album right away when it came out. I remember reading like mixed reviews on this, people saying it wasn't as strong. You know, a lot of the reviews at the time said that, you know, the band didn't really sound as inspired. I could probably see that, you know. To me, this is still a decent album. Yes, it is a step down compared to what came before, but there's still great stuff on here. And I like the fact, too, that you're getting a little bit of that high energy Carnivore-like speed back into songwriting a little bit. Yeah, you know, like the opening track, I Don't Want to Be Me. Holy crap, that's a killer track. Just a good, fast, punky open. I enjoy it, you know. like I said, and this album I didn't hear till like 2006. I skipped this album for a few years, you know. But there's a lot of good songs, like, you got Less Than Zero. I like Goals. I mean, the title track, Life Is Killing Me, is a freaking excellent track that could easily fit on the last few albums. You know, one of my favorites on here. Notably, too, the songs are shorter on here. But then again, you got 15 tracks. So Angry Itch is kind of a whatever track. Anastasia's a great track, you know. Yeah, man, there's still good stuff on here. We Were Electrocuted it's definitely high, it's a high energy track. But this one, yes, it comes in at number 7. Rightfully so. It's definitely the weakest of the Typo Negative albums. Still a decent listen. I don't go back to it much. It's one of them albums too, it's select tracks on here I'll listen to. Oh no, it's still decent, but it would get better. Coming up next, new record label, a new album. The final album, unfortunately, though, titled Dead Again.
Purgatory! Oh well, oh well! Halloween in heaven! It's Christmas in hell, hell, hell! Halloween in heaven! Oh well, oh well! The devil stole the Yule tree! Decorator is oh, oh, oh! Jesus took a feeding! I see me love! Heaven! Living with hell! Purgatory! Oh well, oh well!
All right, well, we've reached the end of this journey because now 4 years later, album number 7, the final Typo Negative album, would come out on a different record label, SPV Steamhammer. Now, I just acquired the Nuclear Blast reissue of Dead Again. One I needed in my collection, one I had trouble finding. Thank you, Nuclear Blast, for reissuing this again. Anyways, what can be said? A lot of things led up to this album prior. 2006, I believe it was, on the Typo Negative website, jokingly, it's put up on the website that Peter Steele passed away. Typo Negative always had this dark sense of humor. The dark humor thing, some people get it, some people don't get it. I don't think you're meant to get it. Either or, it stirred up some stuff at the time. Well, it turns out Peter Steele was obviously still alive. So in between that, Peter Steele became a Christian. That's right. He became a born again Christian during this time. He was still kind of struggling with alcohol at the time, but he was turning his life back around. So in 2007, Unleashed to the World, Dead Again. I remember my one buddy getting this when it came out. I remember we were listening to this. We freaking loved the album. Man, in fact, it was our favorite Typo Negative album at that time. Strangely, I know, because it's a new album, but we loved it that much. But man, there are some dang good songs on here. The opening track, Dead Again, basically a song about, the rumors of Peter Steele dying. That's pretty much what it's about. A fast, upbeat, energetic track. Love it. Definitely harkens back to Carnivore a little bit, But you still get the slow, doomy, Typo Negative stuff too. Like Tripping a Blind Man is another excellent track. The Prophet of Doom is just an epic doom metal masterpiece on here. Really good stuff, really heavy stuff. The doom kind of harkens back to Slow, Deep, and Hard a little bit with the darkness, and the heaviness. But man, then you get the gorgeous September Sun. This might be the best melodic Typo Negative song out there. It is just beautifully written. Gorgeous piano playing by, Josh Silver, excellent vocals by Peter Steele. Just a really powerful song in its own right, epic. I mean, just a lot of good stuff. Halloween in Heaven, dedicated to the late Dimebag Darrell, and other fallen musicians at the time. Good song. Another fast, upbeat track. So just looking through the album here. Man, there's a lot of good stuff on here. Some Stupid Tomorrow is another fast-paced track that harkens back to the Carnivore days, you know. So yeah, you get a lot of good stuff in here, man. A really, really strong album, in my opinion. This one, man, it could move up anytime. Right now, it's my number 4. I originally was thinking number 3, but I thought about it. I'm like, okay, maybe number 4, but it could easily move up. I think it's a great album. I think it's a great album to go out on, you know. And at this time, you know, Typo Negative would go on tour. I saw Typo Negative in 2008, actually, in Baltimore, Maryland, with 3 Inches of Blood and Hatebreed at Rex Theater down there. And yes, at the show, me and my friend were lucky enough to meet Peter Steele. We didn't get to really interact with him because jokingly he looked at us and said, "Yeah, man, I'm just trying to get back here and get a shower, you know." But the last memory I have, I got to shake his hand. He had a nice smile on his face. He looked like he just looked like he was in better spirits, you know. And it seemed like, you know, he did eventually get himself clean. They were working on another Typo Negative album, and unfortunately, yeah, April of 2010, Peter Steele passed away at the age of 48. I was in shock, considering 2 years prior I met the guy. You know, to this day, you know, Peter Steele's still a really huge influence on me. The big man, because I'm a big man myself, you know. And me and him were about the same height, I remember, when I met him. So he's definitely an inspiration. He wrote some of the greatest songs in the history of heavy metal, you know. So the reason why I'm doing this to dedicate this to Peter Steele, and I wanted to do it. Because Typo Negative, Carnivore, even the early stuff with Fallout had some really good stuff. So I hope you all enjoyed this. You know, like, comment, subscribe. I'm going to try to do more stuff like this on the channel. Anyways, guys, thank you very much and keep it metal and rest in peace to the Green Man, Peter Steele.